Okay, you guys, this is from the underground bunker. Yes, I did say I was not going to read his articles anymore, but I'm taking it back just this one time because I was very interested in this article and it was in my queue and it's information that we need to hear. So here it goes. So, this is from the underground bunker. When the person who certified Scientology clears discovered that there were no clears, by Tony Ortega, November 26, 2018. More children. We have a very special item for you today. One of Sonny Barrera's best pieces yet. There were few people in a better position to raise these questions about one of Scientology's central mysteries, the clear. I must have had an amused look on my face. My boss, the senior case supervisor, in charge of all Scientology technical standards for our Scientology and Sea Org, was glaring at me. I was fighting back the urge to burst into laughter. I was sure this had to be an April Fool's joke, but in November, I looked at her again and apparently she was serious. So you are telling me that in order for us to verify a person who claims to be a past life clear, we have to find out their name from their previous lifetime, get all the past life auditing files brought in, and find the proof of clear in those past life folders. Are you telling me this is coming from Chairman of the Board, RTC, David Miscavige? I asked her. Yes, she told me with a straight face and walked off. I wondered for a moment if it would have been appropriate to salute her at that moment. It was right at that moment, as she was walking away, that I realized that no one, including Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, had any clue what a clear was, or how to achieve it. It became crystal clear for me in that moment. And I knew right then that I had to get out of this place. It was over for me. To give you some sense for how I had gotten to this point, and why it hit me with such force, let me back up a bit. I had been honored with the flag training lineup that would make me into a Class 5 case supervisor. This was what was called within Scientology a Duke of the Auditor elite. I had studied all of Hubbard's St. Hill Special Briefing Course lectures, which, believe me, was tedious. Listening to hundreds of hours of Hubbard droning on about daily technical breakthroughs, most of which would be trash canned over the next few days or weeks or years by him, took a toll, as well as studying every single red technical volume released, perhaps 15 huge volumes of them. I had also been trained on how to audit a person through the Clear Certainty Rundown, the only approved method for verifying and confirming clears in the eyes of any Scientologist, and to its ruling entity, the Religious Technology Center. I was fully qualified to make clears through auditing sessions and confirm them through case supervisor duties. The ultimate goal of Hubbard and Scientology has always been a cleared planet. This meant that as Scientologists and Sea Org members, we had been tasked with getting each and every person in the world up to clear. Something that appeared an impossible goal. And what about these OT levels? Where do they fit in? Well, if you study the materials in the OT levels, you would also see there the goal of a cleared planet. How? A clear through auditing sessions is only clear on the first dynamic themselves. Is only clear on the first dynamic. The OT levels aim to clear other dynamics by clearing the unseen spirits, the thetans, the body thetans, that are attached to all of us. In this way, Scientology actually plans to clear Earth. The OT levels aim to counsel those little spirits and make them into clears and send them off into the new bodies of their own. This is, I tell you with a straight face, how Scientology plans to clear the Earth. But what is clear? A being who no longer has his own reactive mind. Hubbard tells us it is also a person who has realized that they had created their own reactive mind to begin with. Tell me that's not the biggest bait and switch on earth. They have come to understand that they were the ones creating the neurotic, illogical part of their mind that had been holding them back all along. This is the key insight that years of expensive Hubbard counseling is supposed to produce. It seems simple enough, and yet so much controversy has arisen from a simple problem. Although many people over the years have attested to this idea and were declared clear, none of them demonstrate any actual ability gained in the real world, except being broke. Clears, it turned out, were no better than anyone else. Even Hubbard, in his later bulletins, admitted that a cleared cannibal, there's that word again. Where do we see that stuff happen? Anybody here know? Cleared cannibal was a cannibal, in other words. Attaining clear didn't mean that a person would think or act any differently than they had before. And once he decided to switch Dianetics from a science to a religion, Hubbard, allegedly it was him, Hubbard gave himself even more wiggle room. There were always explanations about why the exorbitantly expensive levels in Scientology weren't producing anything tangible. In Scientology, it was always the next level. That would fix what ailed you. Throughout my training on the St. Hill Special Briefing Course, I heard Hubbard say in lectures that this time I've really got clear figured out. I took this to mean two different things. One, he had not defined it for himself to attain it properly because he thought he had it, but it wasn't stable. Then later, I thought he had figured out how to make clears himself, but he had to find a way, a streamlined way, for others to be able to audit people to clear. After all, Hubbard himself would never be able to clear the planet on his own. He had to find a way that all of us, no matter our background, would be able to learn how to make clears and make them in volume. It made sense to me at the time. After completing my training, I was sent to help make clears and get them onto their OT levels. This is a high-pressure job in the Sea Org. RTC representatives were constantly in my office to find out who might be the next candidate for the lucrative OT levels. So an important part of my job was to prove to RTC reps that each person they wanted to go on OT had truly in fact made it to clear. But many who had supposedly achieved clear actually did not have the cognition required in order to move up to the OT levels and were commonly sent back for more Dianetic auditing, being told there's more money, being told they hadn't actually made it to clear yet. You can imagine after people had spent years and huge amounts of money to go clear, being told that it still wasn't the case, it's moving the goalpost, caused them a lot of grief and anger. To deal with that problem, RTC came up with a program to interview people, fishing around for evidence that they were clear, even though they hadn't shown evidence of it yet. These interviews could last many hours. Aren't those more so like an interrogation? Security checks or, well, I guess auditing sessions. These interviews could last many hours, but that program was canceled because our questions were too leading. I found that 80% of the persons coming in to begin their OT levels had not properly made it to clear, and many who had were cleared cannibals in a sense. I could not find any real difference in behavior in someone who had made it to clear and someone who had not. There was one example that stood out. A woman was told that she wasn't clear, and it upset her so much she threw her interviewer to the ground. This woman then marched down to L. Ron Hubbard Way from Osho to AOLA and pounded on the RTC office door. She explained to the RTC representative that she was just told she was not clear and was clearly very upset about it. The RTC rep assured her she would check into it. RTC came to see me and the other case supervisor involved in this. They wanted us to look at everything to see if we had missed proof that the woman was in fact clear. Are you serious? I thought. She just assaulted a staff member and you want us to tell her she is in fact clear? Wasn't that pretty convincing evidence that she wasn't? That's funny. This place was getting more confusing by the minute. I was starting to think Hubbard's bulletins and lectures were just for show. I tried very hard to find any proof that this lady had achieved clear in any of her sessions. I pored through hundreds of pages of files, trying to find any inkling of proof. I stayed up for several days looking for proof of clear on this person. Alas, there was none. I told RTC and the other case supervisor there was no proof and we needed to get her properly to clear. I left it at that. I wonder if someone had told her she was clear? I don't know. A couple of weeks later, I hadn't heard anything about this person. Wonder if she was in the RPF. I wasn't ever directly on her situation, just lent a hand for a couple of days. I asked what happened and found out she was reconfirmed as clear and was put onto her OT levels, and she was, in fact, that day in ethics for assaulting the OT level supervisor during council. Unreal. The wall was crumbling. I started to see that a clear was exactly the same as someone who was not clear. There was, in fact, no difference, no tangible difference. The compulsions, the behaviors, the level of happiness, and the stability of the person were the same from before and after. The only difference seemed to be a label. I pored through hundreds of different case histories and files. I thought about it as well as regarding myself. Did I actually feel any different from before and after clear? No, not really. I still had my same thoughts and compulsions. Nothing had actually changed. It was like blinders had been lifted. The final straw was the absurd conversation from the senior case supervisor about past life clears. It was more evidence that, like everything else about Scientology, clear was made up, invented, and a huge weight was lifted. I felt actually free at that moment, and I knew I had to get out. I was born and raised in the very closed environment of the Sea Org, and the world was scary to me. But nothing could be worse than wasting my life in Scientology, and so it was time. I had to get out. I knew there was no way they would just let me leave. I had to do something to make them not want me anymore, not want me anywhere around Scientology. I had tried to blow at least 100 times, but I always came back, or I was dragged back to be recovered, and I stayed every time. Because I had nowhere to go at all, that's the plan, and no money. At the time, it made sense to me that my best option was to get myself booted out. If I tried to blow, they would make every effort to recover me back into the Sea Org. No, I had to get out. Out and out. I already had 2 strikes, so the 3rd strike was obvious. It didn't take long before I was booted out. Certificates canceled, including my own state of clear confirmation. I wanted to smirk at all of it. Was it not a little odd that it took them 32 years to find out I was a suppressive person? That's funny. Sunny Berira. That's a good one. So I'll leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.